Today we are doing Daf Chaf Amud Aleph. We are holding on Daf Yod Tet Amud Bet. On the very bottom, where it says, where it says the first wide line, Yativ Rav Menashe. So Yativ Rav Menashe Bar Zvid Kameh de Rav Huna Ve'Yativ Ve'Ka'amar. So Rav Menashe Bar Zvid was sitting in front of Rav Huna, and he was saying as follows: "My ta'amad Rabbi Shimon." What's the reason of Rabbi Shimon? Now, just to remind ourselves, we're going with the understanding that Rabbi Shimon holds, right? There's two cases of Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo. One is Reuven died, then a new brother was born, and then Shimon, the middle brother, did Yibum. That's one case. In that case, we said Rabbi Shimon agrees that Reuven's wife can never do Yibum to the brother that was born. We'll call him Levi. There was another case of Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo, which was a machloket Chachamim and Rabbi Shimon. That case was Reuven dies, and then his brother Shimon does Yibum to his wife, and then Levi is born. In that case, we said that Rabbi Shimon allows Levi, right? I'll pull up the picture here, right? So in the case where first Reuven dies and then Shimon does Yibum, and then Levi is born. So in that case, we said Rabbi Shimon allows Levi to do Yibum to this lady. Why? After Shimon dies. Yeah. Why? Because when Levi was born and he first met this lady, she was not a Yevamot. She was already married to Shimon. So the Gemara says, what's the reason of Rabbi Shimon that he allows this? So the Gemara says, what do you mean? My ta'amad Rabbi Shimon, kedamar ta'ama. He said his reasoning already. Ho'il ubaum tza'a beheter v'lo amda alav sha'achat beisur. Because when Levi came into the world, she was not a Yevamah to him. She was not a Surah to him, because she was already married to Shimon. So when Levi came into the world, she was already married. So she was a regular Eshet Ach at that point. So Ela Mai Ta'amad Rabbanan. So the Gemara says, you're right. Rabbi Shimon explained his reasoning. So what's the reasoning of the Rabbanan? That the Rabbanan say that when Levi is born after she had already done Yibum, after she married Shimon and then Levi is born, Chachamim say even when Shimon dies, she can't do Yibum to Levi. She's always going to be Asur on Levi. Why? So Amar Kra'ul Kachalo Leisha V'Yibema. The Pasuk says by Yibum that when a person does Yibum, it's called Yibema. And the Gemara learns, it says he takes her as a wife, V'Yibema. So even after he took her as a wife and they're married, it calls her Yevamah. What do we see from there? Adain Yivumim Harishonim Aleha. Even after Shimon does Yibum, she's still a little bit connected. She still has some shaychut to Reuven. She still has some shaychut to her original husband. So she can't marry Levi ever, because she's still considered Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo. She still, to a certain degree, is called Eshet Reuven. Because we learn from the word Yibema, Adain Yivumim Rishonim Aleha. So the Gemara says, okay, but I have a question on that. Ella haditnan kansa harei keishto lechol davar. We say that once somebody does Yibum, a regular case of Yibum, somebody does Yibum to a lady, so harei keishto lechol davar. It's like she's married to him 100% with regard to everything. V'amar Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina Melamed Shemegarisha Beget. He says we learn from this that when a man does Yibum to a lady and then he wants to divorce her, he doesn't divorce her with Chalitza like a person usually would send away a Yevamah. He divorces her with a get, Umachazira, and he could take her back. Meaning, once they're married, they're married. She's not connected anymore to Yibum. So the Gemara says, "Hatam nami lema v'yibema adayin yivumim rishonim aleha." Why don't we say the same thing? She's called Yevamah, adayin yivumim rishonim aleha. She's connected to the previous marriage. V'tibai chalitza. She should require chalitza. Meaning, the question of the Gemara is, if we're saying Yivumim Rishonim Aleha, if we're saying that she's still connected to the Yavam, then after somebody does Yibum, if he wants to divorce her, she should require Chalitza. So the Gemara says, no. Shani Hatam Damar Kra Ulkacha Lo Leisha. The Gemara says, no. The Pasuk says, Ulkacha Lo Leisha. He takes her as a wife. So Kevan Shilkacha, once he took her and did Yibum, Naasit Ki Ishto L'chol Davar. She becomes fully married. So it's interesting. We have two opposite drashot, right? We'll clarify in a minute. We have two opposing drashot, which the Gemara is going to ask. The Gemara says, Ihachi, if you're going to tell me Ulkacha Lo Leisha means that she's considered fully married and she's not considered a Yevama and she's no longer connected to her previous husband. So if that's the case, Hachanami, in the case of Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Balamo also, when this guy Shimon does Yibum to this lady, to Reuven's wife, she's no longer connected to Reuven. It should be Ishto L'chol Davar. She's fully married to Shimon. And when Levi is born, he should be allowed to do Yibum to that lady after Shimon dies. So the Gemara says, okay, but it says V'yibima, right? Haktiv Hakatav Rachmana V'yibima, that Adam Yivumim Rishonim Aleha, that she's still connected to Reuven. So on the one hand, we have a drasha. On the one hand, when a lady does Yibum, on the one hand, the pasuk compares her to any other married woman. It says Ulkacha Lo Leisha. And we learn from there that she doesn't need chalitza anymore. If her husband wants to send her away, he has to give a get. On the other hand, it calls her a Yevama, that she's still connected to the scenario of Yibum. She's still connected to her original husband. And therefore, even if she did Yibum and a new brother was born, she cannot be with that new brother because she's still called a Yevama, which connects her to her first husband. And she's not allowed to be with, she's considered Eshet Ach Shelo B'Yalo. So the Gemara says, am I right? How come you're deciding to use one drasha in a regular case of Yibum and one drasha in a case of Yibum of Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo? Meaning, in a case of regular Yibum, we're using the drasha of Ulkacha Lo Leisha, that she's considered Ishto L'chol Davar and she doesn't need Chalitza. On the other hand, we're using the drasha of V'yibima to teach me Adayin Yivumim Rishonim Aleha, and in a case of where Reuven dies and then Shimon does Yibum, she's still considered Eshet Reuven with regard to when Levi is born. Levi cannot do Yibum after Shimon dies to that lady. So the Gemara says,
this way, like two brothers after each other cannot Yibum one wife.
It's only in the case where this one, according to Chachamim, in a case where this one is born after, he was never in the life of Reuven. He was born after Reuven died. Even though Shimon did Yibum to Reuven's wife before he was born, according to Chachamim, that's it. He cannot do Yibum to this lady ever, even after Shimon dies.
Which do Yibum to the original wife.
He could do Yibum to Shimon, to
Shimon's wife.
No, sorry. According to Chachamim, no, none of them, because when he did Yibum, she becomes a Tzarat Erva. Okay, so the Gemara says, Mistabra Shadi Hetera Hetera V'Shadi Isura Isura. It makes sense that the drasha that's teaching us a Heter, so we're going to use, meaning Ulkacha Lo Leisha, that she's no longer connected to the original husband and she doesn't require Yibum anymore. That, it makes sense that we'll use that for the Heter, for a regular case of Yibum, where she's going to be considered Ishto L'chol Davar, and she doesn't need Chalitza, she requires a get for the husband to send her away. And Isura, the case of Isur is going to be a case of Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo, that we're saying Yibima, Adayin Yivumim Rishonim Aleha, she is still connected to Reuven, even after she does Yibum to Shimon, with regard to her being Asura on Levi. Rebbe Shimon Damar Ho'ilu Ba'umtza'a Beheter V'lo Amda Alav Sha'achad B'Isur El Ma'ata Achoto Me'imo Shenasa Achiv Me'aviv V'achar Kach Nolad Ach V'met Titya B'em. So the Gemara asks a very interesting question. Okay, let's just go to that case. Yeah. Okay. So the Gemara says, okay, great. That's Rabbanan. Now, according to Rabbi Shimon, what did Rabbi Shimon hold? Rabbi Shimon held that when Levi is born, we look at the scenario. When Levi is born, is there a woman who's waiting to do Yibum or not? If Reuven's wife didn't do Yibum yet, and she's waiting to do Yibum, and then Levi is born, she's Asura on Levi.
You mean Shimon's supposed to do?
Okay? Yeah, if nobody, according to Rabbi Shimon, if nobody did Yibum yet, and when Levi was born, he was born into a scenario where the lady is waiting to do Yibum, so she's Asura on Levi. If he's born into a scenario where the lady already had done Yibum, then he can do Yibum after the other brother dies. That's Rabbi Shimon's opinion. So the Gemara says, according to Rabbi Shimon, Da'amar ho'elu ba umtsa'a beheter v'lo amda alav sha'achad be'isur. According to Rabbi Shimon, that he says that, well, when Levi was born, he found this lady beheter, meaning she was a regular eshet ach. She wasn't a shomeret yavam. She wasn't waiting to do Yibum. So she was never Asura on Levi. So, Elamata, according to that, Achoto Meimo. Somebody who has a sister only from his father's side. Okay? So, you have this guy over here, right? This guy over here in the middle. His name is Shimon in this picture. You see, he has a brother. There's brothers Reuven and Shimon. They share a father. Okay? And then you have Shimon and Dinah. They share only a mother. So, this guy, Reuven and Dinah, they're not related. Right? Reuven shares a father with Shimon, and Dinah shares a mother with Shimon. But Reuven comes from a mother and a father, and Dinah comes from a completely different mother and a father. This lady was married to somebody else beforehand. Right? It's like, imagine, two people who were married previously and have children, they marry each other, right? So their children are allowed to marry each other, right? So that's what's going on over here. So Reuven, who's over here, he's brothers with Shimon, but he's not brothers with Dinah. Shimon is brothers with Dinah. So let's just read it inside the Gemara, that Elamata achoto meimo, somebody who has a sister that he only shares a mother with, Shenasa achiv ma'aviv, that she got married to his brother that he only shares a father with. V'achagach nolad ach, and then afterwards, this guy is born, or whatever. Afterwards, a brother is born. Somebody who's shayach to Yibum is born. Umet, and then Reuven dies. So tityabem, he should be able to do Yibum. Meaning, basically, we're saying he should be able to do Yibum to his sister. Why? Because when he was born, she was an eshet ach. So the Gemara says that what are you talking about? Isur achuto lehechanazal. Whatever happened to the isur of his sister? It's his sister. Yeah, that isur doesn't go away. So the Gemara says, good. Same exact thing by eshet ach shelo haya ba'olamo. Hachanami isur achiv shelo haya ba'olam hechanazal. In a case of eshet ach shelo haya ba'olamo, we don't have in the case where Levi was born into a scenario where Reuven's wife already had done Yibum. So what happened? Just because she did Yibum, she's not Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olam anymore. She still was an Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olam. Okay, Levi was born after she already got married. So what? Over here also, in this case, this middle guy, Shimon, is born after his sister already was married to this guy. But it doesn't take away the erva, the fact that she's married.
It's not erva.
Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo.
I know, but when the guy passed away, is good for the brother to do Yevum, yeah?
Right, but only a brother that was alive at the same time as the it's a lamdish question, but basically the Gemara is asking, once her husband died, she is an Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo of the new brother that was born. So she got married before he was born, but so what? She was an Isur. There was an Isur on her for any brother that would be born. That Isur didn't go anywhere. So the Gemara says, no, that's a little bit different of Isur. So, Ha Isura deled lehetera. Sister, in this case, is an Isur that doesn't have any heter. But the case of Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo, Isura did lehetera. Eshet Ach is an Isur that has a heter. It's a heter of Yibum. Therefore, it's a different type of Isur, and we don't have this question at all if the Isur was hovering over her. No, it's not true. That Isur is an Isur that is not that has a heter. Okay, let's see the next Mishnah. Next Mishnah is
Go fast.
a lot easier. Yeah, we have like 15, 12 minutes. Okay, so Klal Amru B'Yevama says the Mishnah, very much easier Mishnah. So there's a klal we say by Yevama, Kol Shei Yisur Erva, any lady who's an erva who falls to Yibum, what's the halacha? Lo choletzet v'lo mityavemet. Right, that we already know. No chalitza, no Yibum. So if somebody's sister falls to him for Yibum, like this case, no Yibum, no chalitza. Isur mitzvah ve'isur kiddusha. We're going to explain in a minute in the Mishnah itself what those things are. Choletzet v'lo mityavemet. That's a case where they do chalitza and not Yibum. Again, we're going to explain in a minute what that is. Achota shehi yivimta, choletzet o mityavemet. So achota shehi yivimta is a case where generally if you have two sisters, let's see if we have a picture of it. Yeah, here. Okay, so we'll just explain this case quickly. You have two brothers married to two sisters. Okay, so let's delete this guy for a minute. Just two brothers married to two sisters. If these two brothers die, this guy cannot do yibum to any of these because when he has two sisters who have a zikah to him, he can't marry either one of them because it's a sister of his zikuka. But let's say one of them is an erva on him. Let's say he had a son who married this lady, and then his son died. Now this lady married his brother, so this is his daughter-in-law. His daughter-in-law and her sister fall to him to yibum. In that case, she's an erva, so you don't have a zika from her, only from her to him. Therefore, he's allowed to do yibum. Okay, so that's this case. Achota shehi yivimta. When you have two sisters falling together to yibum, and one of them is an erva, he's allowed to do yibum to the other one, right? So choltzot o choleset o mityavemet. He could do chalitza or yibum to her. Okay, isur, yeah, isur mitzvah. What's isur mitzvah? We said isur mitzvah does chalitza, not yibum. What's isur mitzvah? Shniyot midivrei sofrim. They're shniyot, which are arayot midirabanan. Rabbanan added on to the list of arayot. We're going to see it in the next daf or two. I don't remember exactly. But arayot that are midirabanan. Isur kiddusha. Isur kiddusha. What was that? We said isur kiddusha also does chalitza, not yibum. Almana lekohen gadol, grusha v'chalutza lekohen hediot. An almana who falls to yibum to a kohen gadol, or a grusha, a kohen married a divorced woman and then he died, and she falls to yibum to the brother, right? So that also chalitza, no yibum. Mamzeret untin. Yeah, that's the kohen did an asur. You know, the kohen has his brother's not so frum. He married a grusha, and then the brother died. So this kohen who's frum, he doesn't want to marry a grusha. He doesn't want to do yibum, and it's asur to do yibum. So in that case, it's asur to have biyah with her. So in that case, choletzet v'lo mityavim. We're going to see more details on this in the Gemara. It's aseh dochelot aseh. Okay, and then mamzeret v'nitina liYisrael ubat Yisrael lenatin umamzer. So in a case where the lady was a mamzeret and somebody, a Yisrael, married her, and then he died. So the mamzeret falls to the brother to yibum. Or the man is a mamzer, and the lady falls to him to yibum, a lady who's a bat Yisrael. Any of these cases that are isurim, but it's not an erva. Okay, so those cases we said you do chalitza, not yibum. So the Gemara is very easy. Klal la'atu yemai. We said klal, there's a rule by Yevama. What's it coming to include? Amara from our Papa la'atu tzarat ailonit. It's coming to include case of tzarat ailonit, which we had, which we're not going to get into and explain. Oked Rav Asi, like Rav Asi. Ikdamri kol she'isra yisur erva. Ikdamri, some learn like this. Kol she'isura yisur erva hu de yisura tzara hu de asira tzarata. Ha lo yisura yisur erva tzarata lo asira. Specifically the opposite. That we say isur erva. The Mishnah said kol she'isur erva. That's when her tzara is asur. But if it's not an isur erva, meaning it's a different type of isur, like Ailonit, that we learned to maktiv baka arayot, right? Lo asira, her tzara is not going to be asura. Lemeute mai, what's it coming to exclude? Amara from lemeute tzarat ailonit lo karavasi. So two versions whether this lashon of klal amru b'yevama is coming to include a tzarat ailonit or is coming to exclude a tzarat ailonit. Let's go further. So we had the case where two sisters fall to a brother, to one single brother for Yibum, except one of them was an erva. So really only one sister is falling to Yibum, the other one is not. Achota deman. So the Gemara really is misupak right now. Achota shehi yivimta. When we have two sisters falling to a brother to Yibum, are we talking about two sisters and one of them is an erva or one of them is some other isur? So Gemara says achota demani lemede isur mitzvah. If we're gonna say it's talking about achot of someone who's shniyot la'arayot, who's only asura midurabanan, so the case would be you have two sisters falling to a guy to yibum, and one of them is asura midurabanan. If that's the case that we're talking about, and we're saying that he could do yibum to the second sister, kevan de midioraita ramya kame paga ba'achot zikukato. Since midioraita, she's falling to him, he's being together with achot zikukato. He's being together with the wife, the sister of the lady who's zikukat to him. So ela achota di isureva. Rather, we're talking about a sister of isureva, which is this case over here, that she's an erva on Reuven, and the sister who's also falling to yibum is not an erva. In that case, Reuven could do yibum or chalitza to the lady herself, not to the sister. Okay, we don't need to go into that. Isur mitzvah, shniot. So we said isur mitzvah is shniot la'arayot, is our arayot midirabanan. So amai kari le isur mitzvah. Why is it called isur mitzvah? Amar abai mitzvah lishmoa divrei chachamim. Because chachamim established these types of arayot. We're going to see a list of it soon in the next coming dapim. But there arayot the chachamim established. Why is it called isur mitzvah? Because mitzvah lishmoa divrei chachamim. Isur kiddusha almana lekohen gadol grusha v'chalotza lekohen hediot. We said isur kiddusha are those isurim of kohen and a grusha, a kohen gadol, almana, other isuri lavin. Amai kari le isur kiddusha. Why are those called isur kiddusha? Dichtiv kedoshim iyu leelokehem. That the pasuk says by kohanim that they should be kiddushim to Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda machlif isur mitzvah. Rabbi Yehuda had it the opposite way. We said isur mitzvah is arayot midirabanan, and isur kiddusha is isurei lavin. Rabbi Yehuda had it the opposite way. He machlif isur mitzvah almana lekohen gadol. Isur mitzvah were those isurei lavin of keuna. Why does he call it isur mitzvah? Because at the end of Sefer Vayikra, which is all about Kohanim, it says ele ha-mitzvot. So that's referring to the isurim of who they can marry as well. Isur kiddusha shniot midivrei sofrim. Isur kiddusha is shniot la'arayot, the arayot that are midirabanan. Why is it called isur kiddusha? Amar Abaye. Anyone who keeps divrei chachamim is called kadosh. So, Amar le Rava says, what are you talking about? You're telling me somebody who doesn't, he says, forget this is the Rabbanan. He doesn't care about divrei chachamim. He's just not kadosh, but he's not a rasha. What do you mean? He's a rasha. Somebody who doesn't keep divrei chachamim is a rasha. What do you mean? Oh, he keeps divrei chachamim. Divrei chachamim is called kadosh. What do you mean? He's called rasha if he doesn't do it. So Ela Amar Rava Kadesh Atzmecha B'Mutar Lach. Rather, Rava says, why is it called Isur Kiddusha? Kadesh Atzmecha B'Mutar Lach, because sanctifying yourself by something which mideoraita is really mutar to you, but Chachamim are putting an Isur on it. Okay. Either way, in our Mishnah, we didn't have it like that. We held Isur Kiddusha is Isur Mitzvah is Shniyot La'arayot, and Isur Kiddusha are these Isurei Deoraita of Kihuna and other Isurei Deoraita as well. Okay, Almana leKohen Gadol. So Kapasik V'tani Loshna Mina Nisuin Loshna Mina Erusin. Okay, so important background. Almana, we'll get through this in a couple of minutes. Almana is not allowed to marry a Kohen Gadol. Now let's say she didn't have Bia ever. She just had got Kiddushin and then the guy died. Under the chuppah, the guy died. Yeah. So she's still an Almana. That's still called Almana, and she's still not allowed to marry a Kohen Gadol. But there's only one Isur. The Isur is Almana. If she's an Almana who had a full Nisuin, she had Bia, there's really two issues. One is, it says it's Isur Lav to take an Almana, and two, there's a Mitzvat Aseh for Kohen Gadol to have a Betula. So you can have an Almana who's also a Betula if she just got Kiddushin and then the husband died. That's an Almana who's still a Betula. So that's going to be one Isur. That's just a Lav. But an Almana who's also a Be'ula, she had Bia, that's two Isurim. That's an Almana, and it's an Isur Aseh of taking somebody who's a Be'ula. So the Gemara says over here, when we say that a Kohen Gadol cannot do Yibum to an Almana, we're saying any type of Almana. Kapasik v'tani, lo shnami n'nisuin, lo shnami n'nisuin. Doesn't matter if she's an Almana that had Bia or didn't have Bia. If she only got Kiddushin or she had Nisuin, it doesn't make a difference.
Wife.
What?
She's already a married wife.
Either way, either type of Almana, whether a guy was just Mikadesh a lady and he died, or he was Mikadesh a lady, fully married her and died, yeah, she doesn't do Yibum to the brother if he's a Kohen Gadol. So the Gemara says, Bish lama mina nisuin aseh v'lo ta'aseh ve'en aseh doche lo ta'aseh v'aseh. An almana who had bia, so what's her isur to a Kohen Gadol? It's aseh and a lo ta'aseh. The Kohen has an aseh of isha b'vtulei al yikach and a lo ta'aseh of not to take an almana. So the aseh of yibum doesn't override the aseh and lo ta'aseh on this lady. Ela mina nisuin, Ela mina irusin lo ta'aseh gredahu. But to take an almana from Erusin who just got Kiddushin, that's just a regular lo ta'aseh. So why shouldn't we should say, Yavo aseh, the aseh of Yibum should come, ve'itche lo ta'aseh, and should override the lo ta'aseh of the almana mina Erusin being with the Kohen Gadol. Which is really a question on all these cases, right? So, Amar Rav Gidel Amar Rav, Amar Kra, the Pasuk says, Valta Yevimto Hashara. Shein Talmud Lomar Yevimto, Ma Talmud Lomar Yevimto. So the Pasuk already said that we're talking about a Yevama, and the Pasuk says, Valta Yevimto Hashara, he has to bring his Yevama up to the Zekenim and do Chalitza. So what do we see from this Pasuk? Yesh Lecha Yevama, the Bach changes it to Acheret, She Ola Lechalitza Ve'ena Ola Leyibum. You see from the Pasuk that we really have to end, but you see from the Pasuk that Va'alta Yevimto Hashara, it calls it Yevama that does Chalitza, meaning you see in the Torah, you see from Mideoraita, there's a concept, an allusion to a Yevama that only can do Chalitza and not Yibum. Now the Gemara is going to ask, we have a rule that teaches the opposite, Kola Olele Yibum, Olele Chalitza. So I guess we'll have to save that for tomorrow. Okay.